This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to Chief Justice of the Virginia Supreme Court, Cynthia Kinser. We really appreciate your being on This Week in Richmond. In particular, when we saw that you had announced that there was going to be a retirement coming up, we said, maybe we will be able to get you to come on the show and to let our viewers get acquainted with you as you're in your last months before the time ends.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We appreciate it very much. Now, you went to law school, so I think I'm interested, and I think our viewers would be too. What was it that caused you to want to go to law school coming out of college?
I can't point to any particular thing or person. I did not grow up in a family of attorneys. I did not spend, time hanging around a courthouse or a lawyer's office. But I think I was just blessed at a very early age, about the 7th grade, with just knowing what I wanted to do, what career path I wanted. So when I started at college, my whole goal was to go to law school, and never changed that.
I think that's somewhat unusual, because I think many of the friends I know who've gone to law school decided sometime in college or that time, but you were on that path from an early time.
I was, like I said, I think I was just blessed with knowing that very early in life, and never changed my mind, never considered another career. I don't know what I would have done if I had not gone to law school. There wasn't a second choice.
Yeah, well, that is good that all worked out for you too. It did. Now, as a native of Lee County, what was your path from Lee County and coming to Richmond?
Well, I graduated from college at the University of Tennessee, although I did my freshman year at the University of Georgia. And the University of Virginia Law School was always my first choice, so I worked hard in college to make the kind of grades I knew I would need to get in the University of Virginia. Fortunately, I did. And then after I graduated, I clerked for United States District Judge Glenn Williams in Abingdon for a year. After that, I worked as an associate in a law office in Jonesville, Virginia for about 9 months, and then I opened my own office as a solo practitioner and ran for Commonwealth's attorney.
Oh, it's two bold moves. Opening your own office and running.
Yes. Yeah. I fortunately won and served as Commonwealth's attorney in Lee County for 4 years. It was a part-time position then. So I kept my private practice open as well, but it was very part-time. There were a lot of things you could not take in terms of civil cases when you're the Commonwealth's attorney. Ran again, lost the second time, which I think was a good thing actually, and I returned back to private practice, and then eventually ended up as a United States Magistrate Judge, sitting in Big Stone Gap in Abingdon, and sat there in that court for 7 years before having the good fortune of being elected or selected to come to the Supreme Court of Virginia.
Well, that certainly was a remarkable steps along the way that got you here. Now, some of our viewers, in fact, perhaps many of our viewers don't really know that the time that you're actually in session and what part of the year you you and your colleagues on the bench are here in Richmond for the Supreme Court, and what time you're back still doing legal work for the court. So describe that whole year. What would be a fairly typical year?
Well, we think of our court year starting the week after Labor Day. And we have court that week, the week after Labor Day in September. And we have 6 weeks from then throughout till June, early June, when we are in session for an entire week. And that's when the court is hearing argument on cases in which we've granted an appeal probably 4 or 5 months prior. In between those 6-week sessions, we have 6 times that we meet in panels of 3 to consider what we call petitions for appeal, and that's when we decide which cases we're going to grant an appeal in. So that's 12 trips right there
Yeah.
to Richmond. And then as Chief Justice, of course, I have other administrative responsibilities. So when I come, I stay longer, and I have to come more often as well.
So the other justices would have less, if they're live outside of the Richmond area, as I think most do, they would have less trips than you.
They would still have those 12 trips, but they probably wouldn't have to come back for other administrative matters as much as I do.
So when you're back in Lee County, still doing work or reading and preparing, what's the Lee County part of your Chief Justice life like?
Well, part of my staff is there, and part of it's in Richmond. But when I'm in Pennington Gap, I'm usually either reading briefs, preparing for the next session of court week, or I'm writing opinions that have been assigned to me from the last session of court week. And then in the mix of all that, there are a lot of administrative duties, which fortunately in today's world you can handle with emails and video conferences.
Yes. Now, looking back, it wasn't that long ago, but it was 1997.
Right.
Like when you were first appointed to the court. Could you go back in time a bit to reflect on 1997 and joining the Supreme Court? What was that move like?
It was exciting. I remember when the General Assembly adjourned at that point in time and had not filled the vacancy that existed. It was Justice Roscoe Stevenson who was retiring, and they did not fill the vacancy. Of course, at that point it goes to the governor for an interim selection appointment, and then the person has to stand for election by the General Assembly for a full term the next year. And I decided to let Governor Allen know that I was interested, and a lot of people were interested. So I'll never forget the night that I got the call from him offering the position to me, and then flew to Richmond for a press conference the next day. So it was very exciting. I was scared. It's an awesome responsibility, and just hoped that I would be able to fulfill my responsibilities, and I hope that I have. I think I have, but I've worked very hard over the years.
Were you in any way reluctant when you got that word? I mean, it was an interim appointment.
Well, I was, as a matter of fact. I was a United States Magistrate Judge, had been in that position for 7 years, and I knew that if I got the appointment by Governor Allen, that there was a chance that the General Assembly would not elect me to a full term. And I remember, talking about at the dinner table, probably too many nights, about whether I should even ask to be considered. And finally, my son, who was a senior in high school at the time, said to me, "Mom, sometimes opportunities just come along once in a lifetime, and you just have to take a chance." And I thought that was good advice. I said, "You're right." So I, submitted my application to Governor Allen the next day, and the rest is history.
Yes, yes. Well, now, there was some time before you were named the Chief Justice. I don't know, you worked with others who were in that position. When that opportunity came along, how was that decision?
Well, when I started on the court, Harry Carrico was Chief Justice and had been Chief Justice for a long time. And a few years after I started on the court, the General Assembly actually changed the statute so that the Chief Justice was selected by the members of the court rather than just automatically going to the next person who has the most seniority. So the first Chief Justice that we actually elected among ourselves was, of course, Leroy Hassell. And after he decided not to seek a third term as Chief Justice, so the term is 4 years, at that point I was next in seniority. He had the most seniority at the time, and I was next in seniority. And it just seemed like maybe perhaps something I should do at the sort of end of my career, because I knew whether I was Chief Justice for 4 years or 8 years that it would be nearing the end of time on the court probably.
So And that, so you only figured on one term.
Well, I didn't know. I knew that
Yeah.
we elect for 4 years. I went into it not knowing whether I would want to do it just 4 years or 8 years, because I knew that it was going to be hard, perhaps harder, because I lived so far from Richmond, and that would make it more difficult. Because over the years, traveling to Richmond just for court sessions was, I think, harder for me than other folks, because the distance takes its toll.
Well, I think our viewers do know that you are the first woman to serve as Chief
Right.
Justice on the Supreme Court. And so at the time when that election takes place, the former chief was there, so everyone votes. So it's I think quite a compliment to you as an individual member of the court. I'm not saying female or male member, but that you would be chosen by your colleagues.
Well, it's a distinct honor, and I told them at the time and continue to tell them that I very much appreciate the trust that they placed in me, and hope that I have lived up to their expectations.
Well, going back some in time, well, you said you had this career path in mind, at least to go to law school when you were in 7th grade. At what point did you, in that whole mix, did you think about running for office?
Well, the only time I ran for office was for Commonwealth Attorney in Lee County. And Lee County is a very rural county, and so a lot of people suggested to me that that was a good way to establish yourself as an attorney and to get yourself known. And so I decided that made some sense, and I decided to run, and ran the second time because I felt like maybe I should, but was not all that disappointed when I lost the second time. I was ready to go back to full-time private practice of law. But I never had any other political ambitions at all.
That was it.
That was it, yes.
And well, because I know from looking back at some of your history that probably before the time, or maybe around the time when you were in the 7th grade, that you helped your father on the campaign.
Well, I was in the second grade.
Oh, 2nd grade.
Yes, he was running for the House of Delegates. It was in 1959, and I was in the 2nd grade. I can remember going to political events, handing out his cards and asking people to vote for my father. So I was exposed to politics at an early age, but I didn't like the campaigning and the running of a campaign and being in political office. It just wasn't what I really wanted to do any more than being Commonwealth Attorney.
Well, that whole process has really changed from back then, not that long ago, to now, that probably even other people running for Commonwealth Attorney, it's a lot different, a lot more expensive, and a lot more that has changed. Now, if you don't mind, going back to the fact that as Commonwealth Attorney you were part-time, was that fairly typical at that time with the more rural counties in Virginia?
As I recall, it was based upon the population of the county as to whether the Commonwealth Attorney was full-time or part-time. I don't remember now how many counties were. There weren't a lot, but there were some. And at one point, the Compensation Board actually allowed me to have a part-time assistant. So you had a part-time Commonwealth Attorney and a part-time assistant. Never quite understood the rationale for that, but that's what I did for a while.
And it must have been a challenge to kind of juggle that with then your private practice, as you said, because there were certain clients that you had to turn down.
Oh, yes. It was my private practice. I didn't have much of a private practice those 4 years because the Commonwealth Attorney, even though they called it part-time, it was really a full-time position, even with the part-time assistant. There were many, many days when you had the circuit court going on and one of the district courts, either general district or juvenile domestic relations. So it's hard for one person to be in 2 courts at the same time.
Well, I think many, if not all, members of the General Assembly would make similar comments in saying that while they're part-time, they really are full-time.
That's very
so
true.
There are other positions where that really is the case. So then getting the chronology in mind, after you ran the second time, were relieved of those responsibilities and went back to your private practice, then how long was it before then you were, I think, over in Abing, then you said?
Right. I was Commonwealth Attorney from let me get my years straight, 79 was when I was elected, so 80 to 84. And then I went on federal bench as a magistrate judge in 1990 and served till 97.
Yes. Well, in this very distinguished role, the first woman as Chief Justice, at some point there'll be a second, there'll be a third.
Sure.
But that Has that had any extra weight on you being first in that sense? Has it been, what did it feel like for you being the first?
You know, I don't think it really, I didn't approach it from that respect. You know, I was the first woman Commonwealth attorney in Lee County. When I started practicing law, I was the only woman really in far Southwest Virginia at all. So the notion of being the first, it kind of, I dealt with that before. So I'd gotten over it, yes. You know, I'm more worried about just doing a good job and, you know, living up to the trust that my colleagues had placed on me. And I think that's the most important thing. If you do a good job, then everything else falls in place.
Well, this past January, the viewers that were here on Capitol Square or others who were watching on TV saw you in a kind of a ceremonial role, as I may refer to it, as you were swearing in the current governor of the Commonwealth. Are there other ceremonial duties or other specific duties that the Chief Justice has that the other justices do not have?
Not necessarily. I mean, any one of us could have been asked to just administer that oath that day. I was very pleased that Governor McCall asked me, and I was honored to do so. You may recall, though, that 2 circuit court judges actually administered the oath to the Lieutenant Governor and the Attorney General that day.
I was trying to recall, but they were circuit court judges.
They were circuit court judges, yes. And actually, a number of years ago, I administered the oath when Jerry Kilgore took office as Attorney General.
Oh.
So, you know, it's not necessarily the role of Chief Justice. Typically, I think over the years, the Chief Justice has usually been asked to administer the oath to the Governor. There are other ceremonial sessions of the court when all the justices are there, such as when we have a bar admissions ceremonies and investitures. But and usually the Chief Justice will administer the oath, but not always.
So are there speaking engagements that you and your colleagues have, or are there, in a ceremonial sense, where you would be a speaker at a...
Oh, yes. All of us are asked on many, many occasions to be speakers at various events. And we all say yes when we can, and sometimes we have to say no.
Now, you've recently announced that you'll be retiring. I think the date was given, I believe, at the end of the year?
Yes, the end of this calendar year.
So you'll be back for another session?
No, I won't.
Oh.
End of this December 31st, 2014.
Yes.
So I will not be here when the General Assembly convenes in January.
Yes.
We just elected Justice Lemons, who will take over as Chief Justice on the first day of January 2015.
So that's the transition time.
Yes, it is.
That is. So with all these things that you have planned out since 7th grade or earlier, how did you come to the decision to retire? Because you certainly could have served another term if you chose.
It was not an easy decision. The last 4 years have been very challenging and rewarding. It's been a wonderful opportunity. But my husband's been retired for over 5 years. He was a school administrator and took early retirement when it was offered. And we have 4 grandchildren, 2 of whom live near us and 2 of whom live in Florida. And I just decided that while I was still healthy, that I wanted to slow down the pace a little bit, not travel to Richmond quite so much, and have more time to spend with family and enjoy that part of life. I'll be doing something. I'll stay involved in the law in some respect. I'm not going to be a senior justice for a while. I might at some point ask my colleagues to allow me to do that, but I just want some time away from the trips and the pressure of the work. And
Yes.
you know, I just decided that it was time to slow down while I'm still healthy and can travel and enjoy some other things.
You mentioned some role that sometimes retired justices take. Tell our viewers something, if you would, about that. What does that entail?
Well, by statute, there are 5 positions that are allocated to the Supreme Court of Virginia for senior justices. It's justices who have retired. But you can come back and sit as a senior justice, and you do about 1/4 of the work that you did as an active justice, and you receive some additional compensation on top of your retirement benefits for doing that. So you will always sit on 2 or 3 cases during a court week. You'll probably sit on a writ panel every time. So you still have responsibilities to the court, but not to the extent that you do when you're a full-time active justice.
So in your time since 1997 on the court, is that something that that some of your former colleagues have done?
Oh, I think all of them have.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, Senior Justice Russell, who retired before I came on the court, I think took off many, many years before he asked to come back as a senior justice. But for all of the people who have retired since I've been there, they've all come back as a senior justice, except for two, and they were actually on the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. So they obviously went on to that court and did not immediately become senior justice.
It seems like a really great way of providing to the court and to the individuals, but also to the court, a way of keeping someone involved who has a tremendous amount of experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a tremendous asset to the court and helps the court stay current on its docket. And one of the reasons I don't want to do it immediately is just because of the trips. Richmond really is a long way from Pennington Gap, and so I just need some time to reflect on that and to decide if I would like to do that at some point or maybe not.
Yes, well, that'll be one of the decisions that you haven't made since 7th grade.
That's true.
Yeah. one of the exciting ones ahead. So, any feelings about leaving the court? Any sense of regret, or once you've made your decision, you're happy with it?
No, I'm very happy with it. I thought about it a long time. It was not a decision that I made quickly, but I'm very happy with it. I will miss my colleagues tremendously. I work with a wonderful group of people, and I will miss them and all of the staff throughout the court system. But I think it's time for me to do something else.
Well, and you indicated that you don't know, in the future you may ask, but to some extent you expect to stay active in practice of law?
Well, I can't practice law in state court. There's a statute that precludes retired judges who retired in the Virginia retirement system from actually practicing in state court. But I may do some mediation work, or I may do some consulting. I'm not really sure. Just sort of see what opportunities might come along that would keep me involved in the legal profession,
right,
and that sort of thing. You know, I'm very interested in seeing more access to justice in Virginia, more pro bono services being offered to people who need them. So there are several issues that I'd like to perhaps work on from the sidelines, in a sense, that are important, and I think it's a time of life for me to give back. I've been blessed so much throughout my life, and so I see this as a way of perhaps doing some things and being involved in some projects that perhaps will give back to the legal profession and to my community.
I think our viewers may or may not know that there is that prohibition from actually
Right.
going before the courts. I would think it would be intimidating, and probably a good reason why that
Sure.
prohibition is there.
As I understand it, you could probably practice in federal court, but I think the prohibition is for state judges being back in state court.
So, decades from now, when someone's writing a history of the Supreme Court, Virginia, how would you sort of like your time on the court, 1997 through now, this year, 2014, how would you like for it to be remembered?
Well, I hope that it would be remembered as that I was a justice who was able to write well-reasoned opinions, and that at the end of the day, whether the attorneys agreed or disagreed, that they at least understood the thought process for the decision that was reached. I would hope that people would view me as someone who was always well-prepared and polite, courteous to the attorneys who appear in front of us. And as Chief Justice, I'm very pleased that during the last 4 years we now have rules of evidence in Virginia that we did not have beforehand. We were able to get that accomplished during the past 4 years. And also that we have an Access to Justice Commission now. I signed an order almost a year ago that established the first Access to Justice Commission in Virginia. And I just think that's very important, and hope that it will enable us to do a better job in Virginia at providing access to the legal system for individuals from all walks of life, no matter what their needs are. So I'm really proud of those two things.
I think they could write that portion of the history now. and it has been written by what you've done. And we really appreciate, Chief Justice, your being on This Week in Richmond and helping our viewers get acquainted with you and to understand more of what the Chief Justice does. So
Thank you.
Thank you so very
Enjoyed
much.
being here. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.